Hey Tuan, how are you, man?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. So the last time we met was in LA 2017. It's been 4 fast years.
Yeah, too
What
fast.
have you been up to?
That's a super big question to answer because so much has happened just
Yeah.
this year alone, right?
Tell me about how COVID has how you guys have worked throughout this year in COVID.
Yeah, I think it's a plus and a minus. Obviously, Vietnam has taken it much better than any other country. I think we went to lockdown for 3 weeks, and then after that, it's been just social distancing, and there's no nationwide lockdown. So in terms of businesses, we rebounded really fast. But for the businesses that depend on tourists, we're still hit, right? So that kind of it's a plus in a sense that we are much better off than we would be anywhere else. The minus obviously still affect a lot of people. With my friends and family across, business partners who are outside of Vietnam, and then even customers who are outside of Vietnam, right? So COVID has been kind of like that for us. It's kind of gray for us. Yeah.
Yeah. What exactly do you do at the lab? Can you tell me?
Yeah. So the lab is a design studio. I'm a co-founder and creative director at the lab. The lab does branding, interior, communication, emerging media. Like for example, augmented reality. We'll do like Instagram filters. We'll try some augmented reality with communications, um, digital work, things like that. What I do there is kind of difficult. Even though I'm a creative director, most of the time I just look at people's work and kind of feedback. I don't actually, because there's so many things happening at the same time. I don't say do this or do this. Most of the time I say, oh, this works because, and this doesn't work because. So I'm more like I would say like I'm a sounding board for my team. Yeah.
Got it. How did you get into that work? How did you get into the work in Vietnam?
Um, I came back to Vietnam in 2010 to work in advertising. I was a copywriter by trade, so like writing advertising copy,
Yeah.
like just do it. And then a year after, I was recruited to Dubai. I worked there for 2 years, and I came back in 2013 to open a business, which was a cafe. So I actually wanted to open a cafe and just run a cafe for the rest of my life. At 27, I
What
want
inspired that? Why did you want to open up a cafe in Vietnam?
partly because of my previous job at the time, which is my work at in Dubai. It was great company, it was cool and everything. I love my colleagues, but I just hated the industry. You know, I don't know how familiar you are with advertising, but the crunch time was crazy. Like late nights and weekends, and most of the time, you are producing something that most people would ignore.
Right.
People hate advertising, and so I didn't really like the work I was doing. And so my girlfriend at the time and I decided to take all of our savings and open a cafe in Vietnam because I'm Vietnamese and the country was growing.
And
Yeah,
how did that do?
we closed down in 2017.
Okay, so you had a
Yeah,
good run. How many years
yeah,
was that? Four four
4 years.
years? 4 years, yeah.
Yeah.
Probably learned a lot from those 4 years, right? Working in
Oh
Vietnam.
yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah.
I mean,
It
that's
wasn't even the only failed businesses either. We failed a lot more.
oh really?
Yeah.
Because 4 years in any business is a long time. 1 year is, you know, it's a good hang time. I mean, after 8 months or 6 months, I've had businesses brick and mortar, I mean, yeah, I have a lot of those, right?
Yeah.
They can go for 6 months, and you're like, all right, this is not going to work. And you just shut it down. So to go
Yeah.
for 4 years is a big feat. What? So during those 4 years, you probably started other things, right?
Yeah.
It just wasn't that. Okay. So then you open up in 2013. You get to Vietnam. You open up a cafe, and then what happens as you're operating in the cafe?
Yeah, so I opened actually a co-working cafe. So it was meant for people, like freelancers and digital nomads. So I ran that for about 9 months, and then a customer came through. That customer just so happens to be the CEO of AIA, which is one of the world's biggest life insurance company. I think it's number two by market cap. It's based out of Hong Kong. It's an offshoot of AIG, which went bust a while ago. So, anyways, it's a huge ass company.
Hmm.
He actually loved the cafe, and he came back, or he tried to contact me again to ask me to design for one of his new initiative at AIA, which is a cafe that also sells insurance. So that concept has now evolved, but basically that's how I got into the design game. He liked what we were doing. He wanted us to do exactly the same for him. And from that, we designed his space. We built a team. From that, we got new clients. And now it's been my main business since 2015.
Isn't that
The last.
crazy how things work out like that in life?
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
pretty nuts.
yeah, it's pretty nuts.
Yeah,
You have a cafe, then you have this I mean, it's not even your idea. You have this like
yeah,
person who just randomly rose in,
yeah.
and so where was that concept carried out of?
It's become Nest. I don't know if you've been there or heard about it, but it's basically a financial hub, but also serves a cafe. Think of it as an Apple store that has a coffee shop inside,
I've been there.
but for finances. Yeah. So it's in BTEX. We opened another one in Vincom, Hanoi, and then lately one in the Southeast Asia's second tallest tower, Landmark 81. So there's three so far, and we've been their partner since day one. We also run the cafe. They run the financial services hub. We run the cafe.
That works out really well. Good synergy there. So
Yeah.
when you were growing up, where did you grow up? I'm sorry.
I was born in Da Nang, but I grew up in Los Angeles. Yeah.
Okay, so when you were growing up in LA, did
Mm.
you think, okay, one day I'm gonna get back to Vietnam, or what was going through your mind growing up in LA?
Hell no. At that time, like, in the early 90s, if you go back to Vietnam, it's just like third world country, right?
Mhm.
People there, whenever you come back from America, they're like, oh my God, save me or whatever. It was a different world. It's my country and I love it, and I love the food and I have family. But I never thought, oh, I could see myself here in 20 years, right? It's always like, okay, I'm gonna grow up in LA, own a restaurant like my parents or whatever.
Yeah, so you go to school in LA, and then you go back in 2010, and then you open up a cafe in 2013. So that wasn't part of your plan of what you wanted to do with your life.
Nope. In 2010, the reason I moved back
Hmm.
wasn't really because of work. It was because of a girl that I met. So I met that girl and I wanted to be around her. So I took an internship to come back to Vietnam. That internship became the full-time job, which led me down to this path.
Wow.
Yeah.
So as you work in this cafe, you work with AIA, you develop this sort of scope of a business that comes to you, right? What are the
Yeah.
range of projects that you are now doing? Or actually, can you take me back to the range of projects that slowly get to where you are today?
Yeah. So obviously, first it was the cafe, the F&B side, right? And for a little bit, the co-working side as well. And that exposed me to a lot of different people who are coming through with a lot of their own ideas. So one of them, it's gonna affect my life later in about a few years. But so I'll get back to the food and beverage for now. After that, it was the design side, right? So the lab. And through design, we are able to work with a lot of different clients who also offer us a share in their business in exchange for design fee. So sometimes, they can't afford our fee, so we'll take a cut of their business. And that happened in two situations. So one is Anan, which is quite a hot restaurant a few years back. Have you been there, Anan Saigon? So we took a 15%, no, 12.5% share in the business in return for our design fee as well. And then that investment kind of grew a bit, so that's nice. And the other being Nest, we also took a share in the cafe. So we own three cafes based on a client work. And then one of the contact that I mentioned from the co-working space was Guy. So he had this idea for a website which we designed and named and called it Vicetra. So that has also grown in its own right. So like through our chance meeting at that co-working space, a lot of these different opportunities opened up
Came
to
up.
us. Yeah. And so now we are in creative services, we are in F&B and hospitality, and then we're also in some media stuff.
Why do you think people came to the cafe? Because I mean, there's 1,000 cafes in Vietnam, right? Every
Yeah.
corner has, a cafe, and then the streets, the alleys, there's cafes everywhere. Why do
Yeah.
you think the opportunities came to you at your cafe?
I don't know why it came to me personally, but I think that the co-working cafe at the time had two things going for it. One was that co-working was booming,
Mm,
right? The internet, the digital nomads, the freelancer movement, all that stuff, the co-working space movement, all that stuff predated WeWork. And, the cafe being one of the first in Vietnam, in Saigon, one of the first, it blew up with that, right? If you wanted to work in a co-working space, you only had Saigon Hub at the time, which was very corporate. And then you had Work Saigon, which is our space, which is a bit more creative and things like that. So we had the co-working movement going for us. And the other thing is that Laura and I, my girlfriend at the time, we are there constantly. We are two expats running a cafe in a little French villa. It's kind of romantic, and we got a lot of media mention because of that. Two people who left their high-paying jobs in Dubai. One is white, one is Vietnamese, coming back to Vietnam in a French villa. That's a story that a lot of local media ran with.
right. It was a very charming place.
Yeah,
Yeah, I loved it. I loved going there, and as friends of ours, we'd go there and we work.
yeah.
But how did you understand the business side of all of this when you were coming out of a 9 to 5 corporate? Sounded like, how did you pick up the skill set to kind of take up the opportunity to develop what you've developed?
Yeah. For the co-working space, we had a resource called "How to Run a Coffee Shop for Dummies." So it was this book, this yellow book that we bought, and then we just read through it, and then worked on a business plan for about 6 months before we quit our job. So we thought we knew everything about running a coffee shop, right? Through that book and through the business plan. And then 3 months later, we were running through our jackets looking for money. you know we ran out of money 3 months in. We
Into
took
the
a loan. Yeah, we took a family loan that lasted us until we met the CEO of AI. So that's why when people ask me, I'm just
insane.
like, dude, I don't know, don't ask me.
That's insane to
I
think
think
that
it's
you.
luck, man.
That's what I'm hearing. A lot of the sit downs that I have with my friends and with people that are making it in business or just in art or whatever, a lot of people come across this very lucky situation
Yeah,
because again we'll go back to 1,000 million cafes in Vietnam.
yeah,
And what is it about your cafe that brought this opportunity for you?
yeah. But it could have easily gone the other way
Way.
because, like I said, we've had 5 businesses, and two of them have failed, right? It cost us a lot of money. So it's like that the two that failed could have been the first two and we would have been done. But it just so happens to be the third and the fourth. And so we were, successful 2, 3 times already.
Yeah.
So like I said, it's just dumb, luck.
Do you consider yourself more strong as a creative or as a business person?
I would say creative for sure. Yeah.
Mhm.
I went to business school, but I think I'm much better at being creative.
Yeah, that probably helps out a lot. Having that e- business background as a
Mm,
backbone for you, right?
yeah.
You can make a lot of good decisions as
Yeah.
a creative from business perspective. That helps.
Yeah, you're a bit more sober when you think about creative. Like you're not just like trying to like masturbate in terms of
Yeah.
creativity.
Yep.
You're
Yep. Yeah.
thinking
That's a good,
businesses. You're
very
thinking,
good analogy.
yeah.
Yeah. Very good analogy. What in terms of like going from, okay, AIA, and then the next thing that you do, what was on the horizon? Like, did you have a plan for that, or like things just popped up again, just like the AIA guy?
Starting when? Starting from AA
Yeah,
or when?
right after AIA, right after you put up the nest. Yeah.
Yeah, I think immediately after AA accepted our offer, like our proposal, I thought, man, this could be something, right? Because remember, I've been working in advertising for a while. So I know how to make a creative proposal.
Mm.
I know how to use creativity in service of business. Right? So I thought, damn, this could be something, you know. So, so right after they accepted the proposal, I think it was only a few weeks later that we asked the girl, the freelancer, to stay with us full time to build the team. So from then, yeah, we just, you know, from 2 people went to 3 to 4 to 5. Right now we're at 30.
What, 30?
Yeah.
When in your heart did you know that you're going to be in Vietnam for a while? Like you're going to
Yeah,
stay?
yeah, I think so. We were just talking about
Yeah.
this.
When in the process in your heart did you know, okay, I'm going to be here for a long time? Like I'm going to spend probably the rest of my life here now.
Maybe not the rest of my life, but about as a year and a half ago. Before that, you know, I was still thinking, is this my last adventure? Blah blah blah. But I think a year and a half ago, things start to change. Like I was thinking about, like I proposed to my girlfriend, and then I think about kids and
Congratulations.
family and
Yeah.
stuff. And I'm just like, you know, I don't want to start over, build my network again, build my business again somewhere else. You know?
Yeah. I mean, I got to say, when I was there um, at the co-working space in Saigon,
Yeah.
in the early years, I mean, and I keep asking you about, um, I keep asking you about like how you knew, but when I was, I keep asking you about, you know, 1,000, a million coffee shops, but I knew, right? Like, and I know people know, like when you walk into that space, it was just a
Mm,
very special place,
yeah.
right? And so then I go to other properties that you've done, and I could see the vibe. I could see the transition,
Mm,
and you can see sort of like the trend line
mm,
in Vietnam that I
mm,
feel like a lot of companies have followed you, and that's why we're talking right now because
mm,
that was my feel. That's my whole outlook about the work that
yeah.
you've done.
Yeah.
I feel like people have really the spaces that you've designed. Um,
Mm,
you know, you probably had, you know, I don't know if you had any idea that it would really go and blow up,
mm,
and now you have 30 people working for you. I
yeah.
don't, I don't, I don't pretend that I say I saw it coming, but I
Yeah.
do. I am definitely not surprised.
Yeah.
What, what do you think? Um, where do you think you're going to be taking this in the next 10 years? Being in Vietnam.
I think I have a couple of guesses. The truth is I don't know. But you know, as I've always done, I work with the information I have, and I think I have some guess where I can take this thing. Recently, I've been finding it quite hard to put my finger on the pulse of where culture is going to be in terms of design culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you know, as opposed to back then, 6 years ago, where it was very kind of like there wasn't any design, right? Anything you do with of any quality, it will make a splash. Right now, there's people doing cool shit left and right.
Right.
Everything you do is like a little drop in a bucket.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's getting much harder kind of than it
Much
was
more
a long time
competitive. Yeah.
ago
Yeah. Because
to
when you arrived on the scene, it was very fresh.
yeah, exactly.
The places that you designed were very fresh. Can you describe the style that that's in your
Mm.
designs?
It depends. It depends on the brief, actually. We are actually very strategic. So a lot of people that look at the end product, let's say of a design or a branding, and they'll think, oh, it looks cool. But for us, like the business strategy is super important. So for example, Nest, at the time, it was doing the Scandinavian stuff that Vietnam hasn't seen. But for me, it was a conscious effort to be on the opposite side of Luzine. If you remember, Luzine at the time was really hot, and they used reclaimed wood, so very dark old wood. And for us, we wanted to be the polar opposite, right? So that's why we arrived at Scandinavian Japanese. So it was very strategic, and the same with everything that we do here. So Bunker, which rest in peace, it
Mhm.
was also a strategic decision to go against all of the super minimal, super Japanesey design at the time. So for us, everything is a response to something else. Yeah,
Bunker was like a little bit more splashier.
yeah,
It
Bunker is
felt
like,
even more LA.
yeah, it's like something that an immigrant would do it if they knew how to do something.
What's your aesthetic now? I mean, what are you guys moving towards now? What are you
Right now,
responding? What are you
right now,
responding to now?
right now, I'm preaching this thing called casual creativity.
Okay.
So what it means is like I feel like there's a lot of design that are an expression of the designer. So I like this, so that's why it's like that. And then the person who suffers is either the business owner who has no idea why his business is like this,
Hmm.
or the customer who's like, damn, this chair is uncomfortable as hell. It looks cool, but it's uncomfortable as hell. So for me, casual creativity is like get your ego out the door. This this is what people like. This is comfortable. This is human. That's what you should do. Like for example, in our office, there are plants everywhere. Now we could have designed, special like facade where all the trees look perfect and stuff like that, but it doesn't look human. It doesn't look like something that you would have in a garden. So casual creativity is we take all of these plants, we put them in nice little pots, and then we lay it out as if a person this is their garden.
Right. Where'd you get that
Oh,
concept from?
it's probably an evolution from Bunker, just casual stuff. It's
Wait.
our
So
LA
this is
upbringing.
you came up with this concept.
I mean, I'm sure I didn't come up with a concept, but calling it casual creativity might be my poor choice of word.
Now, do you find yourself doing more projects for yourself now, or are you? What's the ratio? Sort of like what you do for
Mm,
clients, and then what you actually invest for your own properties
yeah,
that you guys develop.
yeah. So at the lab, we're running a lot of projects. I'm only one of 30 people here. So the projects that I personally get involved in are projects that are either my own, like things that I own and invest in, or projects that I find personally rewarding. For example, NGOs or like I do a lot of work on HIV awareness. So that's the kind of stuff that I personally get involved in. In terms of work that I get involved in as a creative director is everything. Everything that my team does, I have to see it.
Everything.
Yeah. Everything that goes out the door will have to be on the desk first.
That's a lot of
But
work.
it's not like like I kill ideas or whatever. I just, oh, you should do this, you should do this.
So you sort of put your aesthetic imprint on whatever comes out.
I'm sure there are some, like some taste adjustments, but a lot of times I would trust the team.
So growing up, um, you know, my family, we've gone through a lot of small business ventures, and I remember growing up and kind of, when we got to college, we started to understand this idea of logos and branding. How much of that did you have to convince clients in Vietnam when you arrived? And even to today, I mean, is there like an evolution of branding exercises and the a lot of people look at briefs and they're like, what the hell is this for, right? So what kind of evolution are we looking at when you got there and to where people are today?
Mm. I think the market has evolved a lot, and with that, you see a huge gap. There are always going to be people who don't understand the value of branding, so like they don't want to invest in it. Right? That's fine, and there's always going to be those people, and you cannot change them. But there are people who understand the market is very competitive. There are local brands going up. There are foreign brands coming in. I need to invest in branding the same way I invest in everything else,
Mm-hmm.
in talent, blah, blah, blah. So there's that huge divide. And thankfully, we have self-filtered ourselves into this area where if you like branding, if you think branding has value, you're already going to the RISE, to the labs,
Right.
to that kind of people. So we don't really deal with these guys anyways. Yeah.
Got it. That's a great answer. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's just by process of sort of where you're positioned in the industry, you don't have to really worry about
Yeah.
explaining that to investors or
Yeah.
people.
If you're looking at a freelancer versus the lab, you were never going to have that people, you know? Yeah. You're looking only at clients who are looking at the lab or RISE or somebody else. And they already know that, okay, it's going to cost this much, it's going to take this long, and it's going to bring me this much value.
Yeah. How do you
Just, yeah,
quantify that? I don't. Is that a question that I can ask?
yeah,
Pardon, I'm
yeah.
like a moron when it comes. I don't mean money dollar wise, but I mean how do you quantify a branding exercise?
Mm. I think there are a couple, actually, there's a couple of methods to do it, right?
Mm,
One is you count your man hours and you can quantify based on your costs of producing that value, right? You can quantify based on expected return. So, for example, if I build this restaurant and in the first 3 months it makes this much money, I want this much of it, you know? So it's based on what you would bring to it. If the restaurant fails at the launch, then you don't make a lot of money because your branding sucks, for example. So one is a cost basis or one is a value basis. In between that is just negotiation. Yeah.
that's a great answer. Great answer. What are you working on now for your own portfolio?
So we just launched a pastry shop called Bakes. Um, and part of my time, I'd say like 1/4 of it is growing that business, getting it into supermarkets, the products, opening new branches, and also collaborating with partners.
How did you get into that specific niche?
That's another crazy shit. So the cafe needed pastries, right? And we were actually like outsourcing it, and we're like, man, these people suck.
Wait, why did they
Yeah,
suck? Because the product was like shitty, or what?
yeah,
What sucked
it was
about it?
price driven, right? So they wanted to do cheap, fast things that they can mass produce. But the nature of the cafe is that we wanted to offer like a creative experience and all that, and we needed the pastries to back that up. And so we just ended up hiring like really top pastry chefs, Cordon
Yeah.
Bleu people who came back from France. Just pay them and create a brand, supply our own cafes first, and then other people ask for those pastries, and then we open a brand called Bakes to
That's
service them.
so random.
So it's just one thing leads to another.
Yeah, so random. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's amazing to hear it. I mean, so many businesses sort of evolve into these sort of things that the owners don't plan in ahead of you
yeah,
know the birth of their businesses.
yeah.
Um,
That's not to say this is the right way to do it. You should probably plan.
yeah, but I mean, you said bake, right? That's the name. Has
Bakes.
it bakes? Have you opened it up yet?
Yeah, so we opened a flagship in Turtle Lake, in D1, next to the cathedral.
Okay.
But before that, we've had pop-ups in Takashimaya Saigon Center. We've been selling online for 5 years now. So we've had a fan base already that orders delivery. It just so happens now that we have a brick and mortar.
Got it. And how is it
During
doing?
COVID, during COVID,
Wow.
yeah,
And during COVID, has the online orders gone up?
it went up, yeah, by a lot.
Yeah, it's strange, right? Like you
Mm.
things that you just in the interior design business that I noticed that there's an uptick in that sector. Things that we didn't. I mean, we've been doing fine. Our
Yeah,
factory producing window coverings on my
yeah,
family side,
I remember.
it almost doubled this year. You know,
So weird.
yeah, and on our food side, it died completely. Because we're outdoor events and we're big
Yeah,
festival. My wife and I do the festival world, and that just died. It
yeah.
non-existent.
It's tough. It's tough right now. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Even so in the States, right? Like even more so in the States. In Vietnam, at least we recovered fast, but you guys
Yeah.
took a big hit.
Do you keep in touch with your family and people in the States a bit?
Yeah, at the start of the pandemic, we would have more regular calls. Right now, it's kind of like the new normal. This is like their life now, so we don't catch up as often.
Yeah.
But yeah, like still once a day at least, just messages.
Do they tell you what it's like here in the States?
Yeah, I mean, I'm an addict with news. Right? Like I follow politics like crazy. Like
Oh,
this
you do?
morning, the electoral college, right? Yeah, I'm an addict to Apple News.
Yeah, and my brother is an addict as well. Like,
Yeah,
he's a political junkie. What do you
yeah.
think of all of it?
Um, about what the election or
Yeah, the whole election, the whole COVID. What do you think of the U.S. right now from Vietnam?
I don't know, man. I'm so torn because I mean I don't mind telling you this, but I was a big Hillary supporter, right? And before that, Obama supporter, and then like when Trump won, I was depressed for 2, 3 days. My bunker business, I said like Americans get a free beer because I just needed to drink with somebody who understood. But as it went on, I started to be okay with Trump in terms of policies, right? His rhetoric, we all hate it. In terms of policies, like my family, of course, being Vietnamese, and they're very anti-Chinese government, right? So in terms of that, they were very supportive. And also, I have a little bit of a stock portfolio in the States, and the stocks were going up. I'm like, okay, kind of nice. And then Biden came, and again, I'm a Biden supporter. So I'm glad he won. But this whole election fraud business that Trump is talking about is kind of depressed the shit out of me.
Yeah.
Because I love the States, and I want it to be strong, like the way it was when I was in the 90s, right?
Democracy, the way it's the way we have faith in the system is a thing. It's a real thing, and when you fuck with that, it goes haywire. You shake the foundation of that trust, and it's just
it's scary, man.
Scary. It really is. That's the perfect word for it. It's stories, right? And that leads me to the next question. Stories. Do you work with a lot of stories in your creative process? Do you, you have to hear where people, your clients, or your potential customers come from, and you have to translate it into a vision. Like, how much of story do you use in your creative work?
I would say like 99% of the time, it's exactly what you said, translating the story that's in their head to the story that is on the branding or in the interior design, right? And that's probably 99% of my work. And I do that quite decently because I was a copywriter. So basically, I'm taking brand stories and translating it to an ad, right? And so I'm actually well equipped to do this work. That 1% is just a little hedge against people getting bored of brand stories. Because a lot of times it's very obvious what the brand is trying to manipulate you into feeling. Right? And so that 1%, I try to throw a wrench in it just to shake it up a bit. Otherwise, it becomes
How do you
Disney.
do that?
You try not to be Disneyland, right? For example, let's say this guy wants to be a French restaurant. And what you don't want is to recreate little Paris, a little Eiffel Tower in the thing. Yeah, it tells a brand story, but it sucks. And it's cliche, and people know what you're trying to do. So you're trying to find that 1% is okay. Is there a story about France that we haven't told? So that's the 1%.
Yeah, a new take.
Yeah,
a fresh angle. Yeah.
Yeah, you try to find that fresh angle,
and that's hard. That's a very hard thing. I mean, in film, music, in everything that we consume today, it's a very hard thing to do. Is to find that fresh angle. And when you do find it in design, I think that's kind of like where the sweet spot is for people who live in the creative space like you. 5 years ago, 6 years ago, when we my friends and I would go out to places that we knew that you were part of. We could feel that fresh. And now I'm starting to see it. Now talking to you, now I know why.
Yeah, if you look at, just take specialty coffee, right? Back in the day when specialty coffee like came into the scene, it feels cool and fresh, and you can understand that these guys are artisans that are like roasting their own beans and all that stuff. But now it's just like it's that same story told over and over, and you feel like every specialty coffee shop is trying to sell you the same aesthetic, or the same story, and you get tired of that. And so that 1% is actually very, very hard. Yes, you're selling specialty coffee, but is there a story that people haven't heard?
And is that something? Is that a directive that you sort of tell the people that work for you? Or
for sure. Yeah, go ahead.
So you're like, we have a directive for you. We need to find that 1% fresh angle. I mean, is that something you tell your people that work?
I don't use the phrase 1%, but we use the phrase "Don't be Disneyland" here a lot. Yeah. So a lot of times the client will come and say, "Okay, we're inspired by Royal Thai." What you don't want to do is try to recreate the palace in a space, because that's Disneyland, right? It's gonna be cheap shit. trying to look expensive. What is it about, a royal Thai palace? Is there something in the culture that we can borrow and try to tell that story?
Yeah. I'm looking at my the yeah, to go back on this whole idea, yeah, because I wanted to actually hit something, and it's actually written out the way I wrote it down in the notes. I wanted to get specific about it. Is I wrote something that I saw on social media recently. You said this cocktail lounge project is an exercise in detail and storytelling. Each item is meticulously designed and crafted to evoke the taste of the times.
Yeah.
This post from the lab stood out because of its direct proximity to the story, and my question was, how does that dictate the story? And it seems like it's built in. Where did you learn that? Where did you begin to understand that story has something to do with the identity directly of the projects that you're working with?
Yeah, it started when I worked in advertising. Brand story is a huge thing. What is that brand story, and then how do you tell that on a medium? Like the story of Nike. Nike has a internal phrase called "If you have a body, you're an athlete." So that is Nike's story, and it's told through so many different ad campaigns. Right? So for us, we've been trained to find that brand story and then try to find different ways to communicate that story. So it's been ingrained in me ever since I went to school for advertising and then later practiced it for a few years. So that is when. But in terms of when to apply to our business, it evolved as we consult clients. We notice that clients always come in and have an idea already what's in their head about what it is that they want their business to do. And for us, our job increasingly becomes, okay, how do we get that and put it into paper, or how do we put it into the space? So story, is very important to me since my work. And also increasingly, as we consult, I see it's important to the work as well.
Where do you get your inspiration from?
Movies, films, and there's one more.
TV?
I don't watch TV.
I mean,
movies,
TV.
films, and Reddit.
And what?
Reddit.
Reddit
Is a website. It's just random shit. But every time I go up there's something interesting.
When I think about design, interior design specifically, and fashion, things, have cycles and they come back, right? But is there ever a time, I think I'm asking you in Vietnam now, do you think that we're able to, your group will be able to come up with stories or a sense of design that goes beyond the cycles, like bell bottoms were 70s and you have so things like repeat, but do you think you can ever move beyond that and sort of like have something completely out of the box and not repeat a cycle in Vietnam?
I think that's El Dorado, right? That's a quest that every designer is on. They're trying to design something that will outlast them, that will be here for a long ass time, that they will quote in a design school. That's a quest that everybody's on, and I'm not sure I will ever get there, right?
Yeah.
But on a personal level, I try to sidestep that whole cyclical thing by not doing trendy shit. So if I see something that's on Instagram, I try to get my team not to do that thing.
To avoid it,
Like I said, I'm always trying to design as a response to something. So if I see something that's very popular, I will probably not do that anyways. So I would just try to tell the story of the brand. If it's true to the brand, it's true to the owner, it's probably going to last a while. Like, for example, there was something that I love working with you for Rock and Taco, right? Like we did something that, we thought it looked good, from a designer's point of view, but you said, hey, it looks cool, but it's not me. And, I cannot get my team to buy into this because it's just not us. And for me, that's cool because like, who are we to tell you what you are?
Right.
And, I love that. And that's how I try to do with most of the work as well. Is it true to the people who's going to run it? Not true to the designer who may not even be at the lab, next year.
Right.
You know,
I
it's like
respect
that
that.
guy's
Yeah.
really good. Yeah. So for me, yeah. So I'm on that quest. I don't know if I'll ever get there. On a personal level, I try not to do trendy stuff anyways. Yeah.
Yeah. And that keeps you out of hot water.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of the filmmakers that we know um, that are successful, whether it's in Vietnam or the U.S. or whatever, that's another. They follow that idea is you want to stay away from all of that the trendy stuff that you think that will stay away from the trendy stuff that's out there that a lot of people think that will sell.
Yeah.
It's in fact those are the things that will not sell. I mean, it goes, in the design world, very
Yeah.
parallel with the entertainment side as well.
Yeah. Or it will sell very. I don't know. Actually, maybe on the design side, it might sell short term. Like you're on trend, and people, might think you are cool, but it quickly fades away. So
Yeah.
at least that's on the design side. On the entertainment side, I don't even know if it's good short term to be
Did you
doing. Yeah.
you grew up in LA? Did you grow up with hip hop?
Oh yeah, I love hip hop. That's the only thing I listen to.
What is hip hop like in Vietnam?
Oh, it's booming right now. There was two shows on recently called King of Rap and also Rap Bit. And with which Sue Boy was one of the guests, right? Yeah, it's booming, man.
Why is it
And,
booming? Why is hip hop booming in Vietnam? Why now?
I think there's finally a platform. Back in the day, it's underground. You are going to your meets and you are, freestyling or you're doing breakdancing or whatever. But it's always like behind closed doors. Now you got brands who are paying you to rap on their commercials. You have TV shows that, like kind of uncover all of these young talents. Um, you have platforms like Instagram and Spotify that allows you to broadcast your stuff. So I think there's just more platforms now. It's always
What's
been
the
here.
what's the difference and what are the similarities of American hip hop and Vietnamese hip hop? Sorry to put you on the spot, but these are questions
Okay,
that are
I'm not an expert. Please, whoever's listening.
no, completely. But you're creative, and I would
Yeah.
love to hear your
Mm,
perspective. You're a layman who
yeah.
is a creative, and you lived in LA. You have an
Yeah.
urban background, and I would love to hear the difference and the
Yeah.
similarities.
We actually did a little research book on hip hop in Vietnam called Homegrown Hip Hop. It's like 100 pages. Um, what we found is hip hop in Vietnam is divorced from social political issues, a lot of social political issues, because our thesis is it didn't come from a place of oppression. Yes, we have censorship, but honestly, as long as you don't talk about the government, everything's fine. Whereas in America, it was a voice of the oppressed, right? So we thought that it's a lot more entertainment focused. It's a lot more personal issues like love, like money. It's less about fighting the system or fuck the police or anything like that. So it doesn't have that power of um, it doesn't have that political power in the art form. So that was our main thesis, and I think the main difference between the States and Vietnam. Obviously, there's craft levels. Vietnam, we've only started this, 10, 15 years. Sorry, maybe 15, 20 years. But States, been here since the 70s, right? So, yeah.
Interesting take. I would never think that, right?
Mm.
Like it's something because you think censorship and you think that it's something that
Yeah.
that the rappers would go near. But you're right. It's the oppression level in the
Yeah.
U.S. is just. I mean, it's
Yeah.
gotten worse and worse
Yeah.
and ironically, I mean, it's just my opinion, but I feel like hip hop in the U.S. have just gotten so commercialized, and it just all
Yeah.
sounds the same.
That's
And
true too.
I, I feel like an old man, but when you listen to hip hop today in the U.S., it just you can't even understand what's going on.
Yeah. I
And
think we're showing our age now.
I
Kids
hope
these days.
I hope that doesn't happen to Vietnam.
Yeah.
You know, I hope the hip hop stays relevant for whatever it's out to achieve, which
Yeah.
I don't think anybody actually thinks about. Like, you know, we're
Yeah.
out to do. Yeah, it's just expression, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
When I say commercialize in Vietnam, I mean like, back then there weren't any money. Now there are brands throwing money behind rap, right? So you can, write a rap song for commercials, things like that. In terms of all the rap sounding alike, I think it's a problem in Vietnam too. Whatever's trendy, there are some people that are gonna do that.
and do you listen to Vietnamese music? Do you consume Vietnamese entertainment?
Very little, only in the context of like needing to understand something. For example, if I'm designing a club, I would listen to Vietnamese rap. Or if I'm, working on a media project with one of my younger staff, then I would tell them to, hey, give me some cool artists now that you're listening to or whatever, and then I would
Yeah,
try to consume that,
and is
but
it
not on
just
my own time.
yeah? Do you think it's just an age thing or a cultural difference? I mean, what do you think it is that you don't
I think
consume?
it's an age thing. And also, like, we're busy now, right? Like, you got families, you got
Yeah,
your own businesses, you have your side projects, and you're expected to also follow this industry that's evolving so fast. Like, there's no time.
yeah, that's true. Very true.
Back in the day when we're teenagers and we're looking through magazines, XXL or Source or whatever, we know what's hot. Now, like, I don't know what's hot.
Yeah, yeah. You're worrying about the mechanics of your business.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Do you feel like there's a sort of style when it comes to Vietnamese design today?
I think so. Actually not like there are a couple of schools. I think there are people who really buy into the eco-friendly design movement, which I think is great. But it does look the same because they're using techniques and materials that are reminiscent of, let's say, Bao Zhongye, right? Very famous architect. He used
Can you
bamboos,
can you say that again?
Bao Zhongye. So, he uses like bamboos and things like that. And there are people who are following, Japanese design who are designing a certain style, like using bricks and using concrete. And then there are people who are following kind of cool hip hop styles, like this brand called Gentle Monster.
No, I'm not
It's a
familiar.
glasses brand, but they're very famous for their retail installation. So a lot of designers also follow that. There's a lot of schools.
Yeah. Uh, when we've all first come to Vietnam in the 2000s or in even late 90s, some of us, you came back to Vietnam and there's a certain feeling that you got from the French colonial that the buildings that were left over. Um, there was this distinct feeling, and then you start to learn about the history, and it just didn't
Yeah,
sit well, right?
yeah,
But you still felt like that was very Vietnam, right?
yeah,
It felt very Vietnam. I feel like when you go back to Vietnam now, there's so many different influences from all over the world. People
yeah.
like you have brought in designs from all over, and you bring up Japanese and you bring up all of these schools. But is there something that is going to be uniquely Vietnamese, or is it going to be this hodgepodge of cultures that doesn't distinguish Vietnam anymore?
Yeah. I hope we still retain our identity. I hope we retain that conflicted identity because I think it's valuable in terms of history and also for honestly speaking, at the rate Saigon is changing and developing, it's just a force of time, and it's just like you, like I look out my window and it's like
Hmm.
glass and concrete, just buildings, 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 and I don't know any force that's going to be able to stop that.
Right, right. Are there any subcultures in Vietnam that you track, that you follow, that you're part of?
um, there's like a few F&B small business guys who kind of like congregate around these restaurants that pop up, like the Quins, the and the Rencon, the Baozi. Like, we'll hang out together and we'll know each other and stuff and support each other. So there's kind of that, kind of like small business owners. Um, There's also like artists and designers, people who work at the Rice, the lab, people who work at companies that value creativity, like Pizza for Peace, advertising agencies. There's that group that I also hang out with. I also just from afar admire and appreciate the musicians, like the Kiwis, the Sioux Boys and stuff like that. That circle, yeah, from afar.
Yeah, they're definitely blazing the trail and
Yeah,
doing a lot of work. Yeah, I've
yeah,
always had so much love and respect for all of the musicians that Sioux Boy and all of the
yeah,
people that are constantly
yeah. It,
pushing.
it can't be easy, I think, what they're doing right now. Like, you know,
Yeah.
so it's good that they're actually achieving some stuff.
Do you do any work for clients outside of Vietnam now?
So our last client out of Vietnam was Myanmar.
Mm.
Um, where else? We do some work out of Facebook Singapore. So Facebook Singapore and also Facebook Palo Alto, through an agency in LA, outsourced their work to us in Vietnam.
Right.
What else? Yeah, I think Singapore, America, and Myanmar. Last three.
Well, all the work that you've done sounds very exciting, and thank you to for sharing all of this stuff today with me. We'll check
Yeah.
back in after this whole COVID dies down next year, and
Yeah.
I wish you and Laura the best 2021, and hope to see things even progress even further than what you've done so far.
Yeah. Thank you for having me, guys. Like I looked at East and at least on the branding side and the things that you are talking about today. I think it's super important to Vietnam. I'm sure it has value in the States as well, but I think to Vietnam, it's very important to tell different stories about Vietnam, because I think there's a lot of stories about how Vietnam is growing and blah blah blah. But like all these different perspectives that you guys are bringing through East is really dope, and I hope to see more of that.
We appreciate that, and I think the one thing that just unites us all is our love for our motherland, right? Our
Yeah,
love for Vietnam. I mean,
yeah,
it's we can't even describe the love for our people, for where we
yeah,
come from. Yeah,
yeah,
the stories that unite us. And again, thank you so much for sharing, and I hope we can get back to this again very soon, and hopefully doing it in person.
yeah. Likewise.
All right, Tuan, take care of yourself, and I'll talk to
Thanks
you
a lot,
soon.
Kenneth.
Okay.
See you.
All right.
Bye.
Take care.
See ya.